Kalispera from Greece. Good afternoon from Greece. I'm Stavros Mavridis. I'm the general manager of Soul Tailor's, a company that is a member of Eurotel Group. And we have started a series of talks about wellness. And today we have the right people, global wellness innovators and pioneers, to speak about brand wellness and how brand wellness will move over the next years, especially now that we have the COVID-19 pandemic health crisis. What we saw the last two days, and we heard from another global wellness innovators and pioneers, is that technology will lead us to new levels of wellness, but from the other side, developers, GMs, executives, owners of hotels and companies need to understand deeper what wellness means and how it can lead us to a healthier and more sustainable world. So I'm very honored today to speak with three people that are many years into the wellness industry, and their contribution was very meaningful all these years. They have set it up many spas all around the world and wellness concepts. So allow me to introduce you first, and then we will continue to our talks. And of course, we're waiting your questions live at the end of our conversation, because our intention was to get as many questions from you in order to be more clear of what we're going to say today. So I'm very honored to have in this series of talk brand wellness Mr. Zangi Gabriak, which is going live now. So Zangi, welcome. Thank you very much for your participation, and please introduce yourself to the audience. Unmute.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much, Stavros. I'm so thrilled to be part of this panel with Dave and with Andrew. It's a great pleasure to be sharing. My name is Jean-Guy de Gabriac. I'm the founder of Tip Touch International, a consulting company for the past 15 years, and also since 2017, the founder of the World Wellness Weekend, an event and a movement encouraging people to switch to healthier lifestyle that started in 2017, and that grew from 2 countries to 109 just a month ago, with over 1,000 venues participating and 60 organizations supporting. So we'll definitely get into the detail of that. Thank you so very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Zangi. And now Mr. Andrew Gibson, Chairman of Wellness Tourism Association, many other things did in the past. Please introduce yourself to our audience. Thank you very much for your participation.
Ευχαριστώ and Kalamera. So my background is actually quite interesting, because having been a banker in the City of London in my early days, I moved and decided to study some revolutionary subjects in the 1970s and 1980s. That was one called environmental conservation, which today is standard practice. And the other one was a newly evolving subject called recreation management, which was moving away from physical education being the domain of PE teachers at schools and starting to get into private health and private fitness. And I've kind of followed that career along, and it's taken me to over 70 countries. I've lived in 7 different countries, in every continent. And I was one of the founders of the Global Wellness Summit. I am the founder and chairman of the Wellness Tourism Association, and I sit and lecture on numerous universities and boards around the world, all connected with wellness.
Brilliant. I think that today we're going to have tons of insightful thinking and ideas to move forward. I would like to say here that we have one more speaker and participating, Mr. David McCahan. But at the moment, we're trying to resolve a technical issue. We did a test and we connected before. I don't know why it's not happening now, but I'm sure that we will solve it in a couple of minutes. Apologies for this, and I will introduce him later on as our conversation going forward. Technology sometimes give us some problems and headaches, but we have to continue. And I will start with Zangi, and I would like Zangi to ask you to tell us more about the initiative of World Wellness Weekend and the SDG goals of United Nations, the Sustainable Development Goals, and how both supports the wellness industry to be in line with the new era that's rising in terms of the global health crisis and how wellness can positioning from now on. Please.
Thank you, Stavros. I believe when we reach a moment in our lives, personal and professional lives, it's not so much about what we do, but also the leverage we can have to inspire and empower others to do so. I'm ever grateful for what I've learned from the Global Wellness Summit. All the conversations that took place over there, the conversations that turned into initiatives, the actions that were implemented. And based on this knowledge and this energy from the Global Wellness Summit, and I joined the Global Wellness Institute, chairing a first initiative about global mentorship program. And this led me little by little to realize that we had to do something about wellness, to encourage venues, GMs, operators, to also connect with their teams, with their guests and members, of course, and also with their local communities and with local officials. This is how, one thing leading to another, that in 2017, I decided to launch a weekend of wellness in September, on the third week of September, which is usually a good time because it's the equinox, so it's a good symbol between daytime and nighttime that are approximately the same, and it's a good analogy with work-life balance. But most importantly, September is a very important time in the year for tourist professionals to continue to bank on and prolong the summer season. Also, it's very important for spas to have members come in and sign on packages and programs, and for fitness clubs to also have people renew their memberships. January is a good time, new year, new you memberships, but September is also a good time. So with this in mind, we started in France and Belgium, and we encouraged venues to participate, to open their doors, just like it happens for many other activities or events, just open their doors and donate 1 hour from one member of the team. At least, there could be several classes, but at least one activity of 1 hour to share with the public, with local people, best practices, tutorials, insights on how to live richer, fuller lives through 5 pillars. Good sleep and building on creativity with what you can do with your brain, nutrition and immunity, movement and vitality, mindfulness and serenity, and sense of purpose and solidarity. This very rapidly was identified to be in alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations decided to launch in 2015 with the support of 193 heads of states to have a plan, a roadmap for 2030 to have a safer, fairer world for all to be accounted for. The first pillar, the first SDG is about fighting poverty, because there are now 800 million people around the world living with less than $2 per day. The second is about ending hunger in the world, and number 3 is good health and well-being for all. And as we move from 2015 to 20, we realized that it's not just one pandemic we have to face with COVID, it's many. There's a sleep pandemic, an obesity pandemic, vitality pandemic with right now 46% of Europeans that say they have no physical activity, a stress pandemic with, depending on sources, 75 to 90% of doctors' visits in the US that are related to stress. And every day on the news, we get the numbers of people who get infected or admitted in ICU or die from COVID-19. But all those past years, we've been focusing with the Global Wellness Summit, the Global Wellness Institute initiatives, and the World Wellness Weekend about chronic disease. The fact that 35 million people die prematurely every year. That's one person dying prematurely every 0.9 seconds from heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, and respiratory diseases. So there's a lot we can do, and I believe it's time for our industry, tourism, hospitality, spa, fitness, wellness in general, to hone this third SDG, good health and well-being for all, so that it's not just helping people to gain 10 years of their lives in good health and vitality, but also helping the industry, the countries and cities to save billions of dollars on health costs. This is why we're so motivated to be aligned with the United Nations, and now also partnering with 60 organizations, including the World Health Organization. We just organized an event with one of their project managers in Geneva last October, and it's the first of many.
Fascinating initiatives, Anki. Thank you very much. I think that you're a very inspiring person, and you inspired us all around the world with all these ambassadors from World Wellness Weekend. And from what I understand, wellness will play a major role in all of social life over the years. And we will support, of course, World Wellness Weekend and all the initiatives of the SDG United Nations. Be sure about that. Andrew, I would like to tell us about your journey into the wellness industry, and how did you see the wellness changing the last 20-25 years, and how we move into this new era.
Thank you, Stavros. That's a very long-winded question to answer, because I've been around a long time, but I'll try and give a quick synopsis of it. And I think you can almost categorize it into three broad chunks for fitness, spa, wellness, because when I was embarking on my career, wellness was a word that you'd never really heard about. Spa was still a concept that was probably a few towns in Europe, and that was it. But fitness, even fitness in those days, as I said earlier, was something that you were taught at school, and you joined clubs and undertook a sport in it. But something happened in the middle of the 1980s with the Jane Fonda workouts, for those of you that are old enough to remember those. And as I was leaving university in the United Kingdom, there came the craze of creating private health clubs centered around fitness. And that's where I embarked on. And I did an internship at one of the first ones that was a fitness club. And then I went on actually to evolve and open up the first ever spa at a hotel in the UK at an airport. And even that spa, when you use that word, was centered around fitness. It was very focused on the gym and squash courts and a swimming pool, and we didn't have treatment rooms. But I learned one of my first lessons in life very quickly, and that's to, if you have an opportunity and you're bold enough and brave enough to go for it, miracles can happen and things can happen. And I noticed at that particular hotel that we had 50 air stewardesses staying at the hotel for 3 days at a time, nothing to do, bored silly, we're not in any major city, and they wanted massages and they wanted facials. So I converted my offices and the back offices and the storerooms into treatment rooms, and hey presto, we did really well. And that kind of saw the very early evolution of spas, and in fact, when I say early evolution, it's only back in the year 2000 really that this started to embrace. If you look at the formation of iSpa and the formation of spa associations, they didn't really start until that time. And it over the period of 10 years, from the sort of the 2000s to 2010 and beyond, spas became the must-have feature for any qualified, reputable hotel. Of course, there still was a lot of vague terms over what that word spa meant, and still today I think there are some vague terms over it. I remember in the industry, when I was with iSpa board, great debates on whether the concept of dental spas and dog spas and spa food was actually destroying the image of spas. And there was a lot of debate about that. My personal opinion was it didn't. Actually, what it did was spread the word of spa and increase the awareness of what spas were, and enabled the genuine spa providers in hotels to have a more clarity and more expectations of what they are. And if you ask people worldwide today what a spa is, everybody can give you an idea. Might not all be the same idea, but everybody can give you an idea. And then we have, in the last 5 to 10 years, evolved into wellness. And for me, this is almost full circle, because as I said, I did environmental conservation. One of the very first things I actually studied, which was kind of ironic, was the only mountain in the UK is Mount Snowdonia in Wales. And one of the pieces of research we did was the effect of over-tourism on climbing up the mountain, and how do you build paths to go up this mountain that actually retained the actual characteristics and stopped destroying the environment, but enabled thousands of visitors to visit each year and enjoy themselves and still have that feeling of being in peace and solitude, which is kind of ironic when we discuss over-tourism today and sustainability. But wellness has evolved, and it still is evolving, and it's got many more years of evolution to come. We think of wellness in the concept today of what activities are being done. So does your facility provide yoga, or does your facility provide fitness classes or meditation classes? Mindfulness is just in the last couple of years come into this. I actually believe it goes a lot further than that, and you're going to see a lot more evolution in this area, because it actually starts from your complete concept, your complete values, your complete thought process. Because once you start with that, that's how you're going to design your facility. And once you've worked out how to design your facility, people are going to come to your facility because it just is a wellness environment in its own right, irrespective of what activities are done there. Then you look at how do you treat your employees, and how do you look after your employees? And of course, happy people will create more happy people. So if you look after your employees, they tend to have a good time with your guests. So there's a lot of evolution to come, and it has evolved over those period of times. And in that time, I've been very, very fortunate to have worked with some great companies. Six Senses, in the evolution when we were creating the spas at Six Senses, we were all about sustainability as far as possible. I think one of the first companies to put glass bottles instead of plastic water bottles, and have water sterilization plants at each of the locations. Then I have worked with Mandarin Oriental, that when we created that brand of wellness, if you look at where Jeremy McCarthy, who's the head of that, has taken that and evolved that into now really going into the mindful parts of the guest experience. And many other of the brands that we worked at. If you look at the raffles program that Emily's introducing there, you can see it's evolving. And I know we're going to talk a lot more about that in this session here today. But I've been very fortunate to be riding a wonderful wave, and long may that wave last.
Yeah, Andrew, indeed. You know, I understand, and we all understand, that the wellness industry is quite new, despite the fact that it has a long history, thousands of years before.
It does actually, Stavros, because if you think about it, Greece and northern Greece, and you're going into the Baltic countries, and you look at wellness tourism. Let's look at wellness tourism, for example. What was that? In the Victorian times, the northern Europeans used to travel down to your part of the world to embrace the springs and the hot waters to recover from tuberculosis and whatever other pollution disease relate that they had in their countries. So wellness tourism is not a new concept, and you guys have been doing it a long time.
I know, Andrew, and this is what I'm trying is to connect and create synergies and you know, speak with people and see how we can move into the new era and how we can utilize all these advantages that we have. And Andrew, you gave me you know, the opportunity now to go to Zanki and actually ask him how wellness will be deployed over the next years to support as many people as possible around the world. And will wellness spread to all elements of our lives, like social, work, family, and in which way? Can you give us like some practical examples and how you can see that deployed, as I said, over the next year?
Absolutely. There were big plans last year, 2019, and even years before, to really roll out a wellness revolution. It's interesting because it's most of the time old concepts that are reformatted, represented. There's nothing new about taking a time and closing your eyes and just being quiet in your mind. It's known as prayer or meditation or sophrology. There are different ways of doing this, whether you do it by yourself, and people have been meditating for generations and millennials, or it's through guided relaxation. And there are many things. The touch and healthy eating and movement, there's nothing new, and we'll definitely get into that later on, with the fabulous potential that Greece as a country, as a destination, with its 227 islands and 250 days of sun. So there's many things that can be said about this, but it's even more important now that we're living through COVID-19, which is a great disruptor, and everyone's looking at COVID, and what the numbers of people infected. But actually, if we look at it as a context, dramatic for some who have lost people in their families, who have lost their job, who fear of losing their job in the possible recession coming in 2021. So dramatic, and amazing opportunities for others who are finding grit and resilience to pivot and not just look at their product or look at their services, but have meaningful connections. You used the word connection several times, Tailor's, so far. Connections, conversations, collaborations, cooperation. The CO of COVID is also hinting in another way. It's not just me. It's we, and it has to be we. There was a big trend in isolation, individualization, me on the social media, me and what I do, me and my friends. Now it's really time to create bonds. So the ways of doing that and rolling out wellness programs, wellness activities can definitely be done throughout the infrastructure existing in cities, in hotels, in resorts. The problem is that it's not just that people don't know what to do. If you just type how to sleep, how to eat well, how to exercise, there are thousands and thousands of links that can be shown. There's actually an infobesity about wellness programs and wellness activities, an obesity of information. So it's not just that people don't know what to do, it's just that they don't do it. A lot of them say, yeah, I'd like to do it someday, but I don't have the time, or I don't have the money to pay for a club, or it's boring, or it's painful because they don't have the discipline or the support group to help them along the way to stay the course. I mentioned some scary statistics at first, and fear usually is a way to prompt someone to do something, to embark on a journey of health or wellness, but it's actually fun that keeps people going. And this is what we want to do with the World Wellness Weekend, to make enthusiasm contagious, to make hope contagious. In the 109 cities, the 543 cities that have hosted activities last September. It's really about creating a shift in people's minds so that it's not just fear that is propelling them with more stress and with more adrenaline and cortisol rushing through their veins, but it's that fun part that creates a rush of endorphin, serotonin, and oxytocin, which is the enzyme that is creating bonds between people. So in very practical terms, there's lots that our industry, that our massage therapists can do to service better guests, clients, and members to connect with the best version of themselves. We don't just touch skin, we touch lives, and those lives that we touch have an impact on the people that they work with, the people that they live with, and the decisions that they are going to do. On an organizational level, I know some spas have turned to companies near them so that they can encourage not just for people to come and get a massage, but for people to have meditation sessions, guided creative sessions. There's lots of cities also that would like to partner, I believe, with our industry. It's scary to see that COVID, I won't take too long on this, but it's scary to see how COVID has reset many things, including who is essential, who is an essential worker and who is not, who stays open and who does not. If we use this opportunity to have more meaningful conversations with elected officials, with their teams, with visitors bureaus, with chambers of commerce, we can show all of the data. And Andrew mentioned the Global Wellness Summit and also the Global Wellness Initiatives Institute. And there is a fantastic resource over there, which is called Wellness Evidence. There's lots of statistics, lots of surveys and research done about this. We should use them. We should show them to elected officials, and we could partner with them. So it's really about collaboration, which is, by the way, we touched on this before, the SDG 17 of the United Nations collaboration. And glad to see that Dave has joined us.
Yeah, now I think the company is absolutely aligned. Mr. David McHahan from Australia, welcome, you're live. Apologies, Andrew and Jean-Guy. I'd like to introduce David to our audience. David, thank you very much for accepting the invitation, and Kalispera from Greece. And please introduce yourself and tell us about the brand wellness, which is actually the title of our talk today.
Sure.
How is going to be new era?
And first, my apologies, because obviously something was going wrong on this side of the world. So yeah, I'm calling in from Sydney, and to go on with something, you know, I was listening into, I could hear bits of what was going on before, but I couldn't actually connect, so sorry. But listening to Andrew and Jean-Guy before, you know, one of the things about this year, of course, is that we're all establishing how to connect with life in different ways, and sometimes, of course, those connections go wrong. But you know, when we talk about brand wellness, it's sort of interesting. First of all, to everybody listening to this session, I'm not a wellness expert. These other gentlemen are, you know, world famous wellness industry experts. I just happen to be a guy who works in advertising and marketing, who has worked with a lot of clients on wellness branding and wellness brand development. And so I don't technically know much about actually, I mean, you've only got to look at me to know that I don't know much about wellness because I look like shit. But here's the reality. When you talk about the marketing world, what's been really interesting in the last 10 years, and Andrew will remember, you know, I started attending the Global Wellness Summit about 10, 12 years ago and getting invited to speak there about sort of marketing and trend things. And when I first went to the very first one, to be honest with you, I was a bit sort of like bedazzled by the whole thing, because it seemed to me like it was just a bunch of guys sitting around talking about spas. But what's happened over the last 10, 12 years is wellness has become so much bigger. And yes, the Global Wellness Institute now tells us it's like $5 trillion or whatever it is, and immense amounts of money, and it covers all sorts of industries. But the important thing about brand wellness is the way that it has changed. The concept of wellness has changed, and the way in which 10, 12 years ago, when you said to most people that were not involved in the industry and you talked about wellness, they had all sorts of ideas. They might have thought wellness was something to do with going for a run every morning, or wellness was snack foods. Now, more and more people are understanding wellness as holistic. And what you're seeing is, what's really interesting is in recent years, an awful lot of companies of all types have tried to make a claim inside wellness. But what was happening was, it was like, whatever I'm selling, I'm now going to call it a wellness product. Maybe I'm going to change the labeling. Maybe I'm going to change the uniform of the people, the practitioners or whatever. And I can remember actually having a meeting with one of the world's largest automobile companies about 3 years ago. And it's a famous American automobile company that starts with a T. And that company, the management of a particularly big Asian marketplace, was telling me how, well, we're a wellness company. And I sort of scratched my head about, how can a car manufacturer be a wellness company? But the truth is that what's happening is that more and more companies are integrating ideas of wellness. So now, for example, I'm working with a different global car manufacturer on a project, and they're not saying they're a wellness company, but what's really interesting is they are building more and more wellness features into their automobiles. So, you know, massage chairs, your driver's seat actually has a massage capability in it. The way in which they're changing air filtering, the way in which they are talking about making driving more relaxing by the different control methods, etc. And so what's happening is, lots of different businesses are now starting to realize they can be in the wellness space, but what they have to then do is be holistic, because you can't just be a wellness brand and talk about, I sell drinks and I'm a wellness brand. You can't say, I'm a hotel and I'm a wellness brand. You know, you have to have a holistic realm of services and links and opportunities. You know, when people go to a place and they go into a pharmacy, for example, I've just seen in the last 3 months here in Southeast Asia, where I normally live, 4 major new wellness brands launch in pharmacies. But what every one of those brands is talking about, don't just take the pill or the potion. Here's the advice. Here's the website about what you should be doing about sleep. Here's the advice on how you should be connecting to exercise, nutrition, etc., etc. And I think that's about brand wellness. That's the whole thing, is it's becoming much more integrated.
Thank you very much, David. I think it's, you know, so interesting, the point of view that you see in wellness, and I think that Andrew and Zangi will be aligned with me that we need people outside of the other industries in order to, you know, to have another point of view how wellness will be developed over the next years. And Andrew, I would like to ask you, after David's input here, how the hotel brands and the big companies around the world will adopt wellness to include more people. As David said, wellness is going into the cars now, in our homes now. Could you please share some key findings of the Wellness Tourism Association, because you did a very good survey, so this shows what the consumers want, and if what David and Zaki said, we're going into a more holistic world, please.
Yeah, with pleasure. So I'll touch on the survey of the Wellness Tourism Association in a moment. I just want to sort of sum up, I think, some things I've heard from Jean-Guy and Dave that basically hopefully can give a quick summary of this. Jean-Guy has mentioned many times about the collaboration that's going on, and Dave's just mentioned about the connectivity that's going on, and the fact that it's not just isolating running as one aspect of wellness or food as one aspect, it's the connectivity of it all. What you're going to see over the next few years is that there will be more language used in the media that actually easily conveys what wellness is, and the fact that it is covering all of the different aspects that are taking place. And then just touching on that moment of connectivity that Jean-Guy was talking about, collaboration. And this is a good example of what could happen in Greece with the right circumstances. This is the Global Wellness Summit. As Dave said, he was a newcomer. Dave, you are actually an expert in wellness. You're just an expert in your field of the wellness, your expertise area of it. And by the way, you look perfectly healthy to me. God
bless you, Andrew. God bless you.
the Global Wellness Summit started as the Global Spa Summit. That's what it started at 12 years ago. And it's evolved to the Global Wellness Summit. And it has launched over 20 different subsections or initiatives. And that's because of this collaboration. It's people getting together and saying, hey, what about this? That's where Jean-Guy has come in and taken what he's done. And just look at the results of what he's created on Global Wellness Weekend, from going from 2 to 100+ countries involvement in a matter of years. Companies could only dream of that type of global growth. And that's why, because there is a public demand for it. And public demand are understanding that the concept of wellness is a more holistic one. We've been using the word holistic for ages. Even spas, I used to be critical of my own spas. When we talk about mind, body and soul, it's not really true, was it? What we really did was the body part of it, and the mind and soul were nice marketing catchphrases that got people in the door, and then we worked on their bodies. But today, mind, body and soul actually is more embracing. There are more things that focus on those things. So, to answer your question and let others speak, the Wellness Tourism Association, we did a survey. Actually, we did it in March to June of this year. So, and we added it. I'm particularly concerned about what would travel look like post-COVID. That would be interesting. What would be the demand? And of course, being Wellness Tourism Association, primarily focused on wellness travel. 4,000 was a very respectable number of people to participate in. We had over 50 countries that responded. The demographics were all age groups, actually, quite interestingly, from 30 years upwards, and a fairly even split, 46% men and the rest presumably women. So it was a good, healthy mix of the two genders. And the average income, so that people understand where this demographic comes, there was around about $75,000 plus. So we're talking of middle class and wealthy people that responded to this. Not surprisingly, because it's a wellness one that is primarily organized at people that actually travel for the purpose of wellness. So the results, and of course, what would travel look like post-COVID? I think the most important categories that came out, the four most important things. One, they want to be in touch with nature. And that's not surprising. And you know, that I always think will be number one, irrespective of whether COVID exists or not. People want to touch base with nature. And that is giving opportunities, obviously, for national parks and for people that have got wonderful locations with beautiful nature around it. But I'm very keen to see what does that translate into city environments, and how can you bring nature into city environments? Because there are opportunities in those environments. And I think if you look at the sort of the street farms in Berlin, is a very good example of how you get communities getting in touch with nature in a city environment. The second part of it, which I think is a COVID related thing, is the need to socialize, the need for socialization. Because I mean, we've had all this segregation from each other, and we want to be with each other. I think that need for socialization is really important. And it's not just being able to speak like this live, it's being able to get the feedback from the audience and being able to relate and see the energy in the audience. I've got no idea of the energy of, like, they could be all switched off and said he's boring. But if I have got the audience to see I'm boring, I better pep it up with a few jokes or something. So you need that socialization. The third thing was to re-energize. People have become far more aware of wellness during this lockdown environment. They've been far more aware of it. Why? Because they've been forced to in many respects. They've been put in an environment that's outside of their comfort zone, whether that's being in a small apartment with 3 kids, 2 dogs, and a wife that's telling you that you're just a lazy slob sitting on the chair. No, not me, by the way, hasten to add. But you know, it's put you into different environments, so you're far more aware of it. And then the other one that was really, really interesting, I thought, was that, okay, so you've got those people that travel for the purpose of wellness. Those are your primary travelers, the classic people that would go to a destination spa. But what's interesting is every single respondent, every single one of them, said that they would include some aspect of wellness in their next vacation.
Sure. Okay.
That's really important. So those are the main findings. And that report was corroborated by the Global Wellness, that did their own survey from their wellness tourism initiative. They did a similar survey. They had just around about 2,000 people participated, and they have very similar results. And then I think, though, just for your audience to also be aware of, is Laszlo, who's out of Hungary. He's a professor in Hungary, works with the health tourism, and he has produced a really interesting research that looks at what does academia think about wellness and wellness travel, and what does the industry think about it. And if you combine those with what the consumer thinks about it, you get a very good cross-section. And the thing to note is this is not homogenous. Everybody has their own perception. And whilst we say it's global, it is global, but it's not the same everywhere. There are different priorities and different needs. So if your companies are thinking of how do we promote wellness for our operation, really know your market, who are you targeting to, and know what their perceptions of it are, because it makes a big difference.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I think that was really, really insightful and interesting outcomes from the Wellness Tourism Association survey. I have to tell you that I heard Laszlo's survey when I was running in the park here in my home. So it was really interesting. That was on Monday or Tuesday, I think. And for sure, we will share all these key findings with through our social media, and I will send it to you, of course, because people need to know what consumer wants in order to adopt and transform their wellness products or whatever hospitality products that they would like to implement. So now we're going to Zanki, and because our talk is about Greece and advantages and opportunities, I would like to ask you, Zanki, what do you have to say, advice to the investors, hoteliers, GMs, executives in Greece? How can they implement wellness for all concepts through their in-house initiatives, marketing strategy, channels, infrastructures, and people's training? So in Greece, as Andrew said, thousands of years we had the wellness, tourism. So I think it's time to recall that. And could you please advise, and what do you have to say to all of us?
Just before you start, Jean-Pierre, Stavros, remind me to tell the audience about my concept for the project that I did in Aphrodite Hills in Cyprus, when you're talking about Greece and you're talking about wellness tourism. Remind me to tell them.
Of course, I will do that, Andrew. Of course. Thank you very much. Zangi.
Yeah, thank you, Stavros. Sometimes when we look around, you in Greece with the second lockdown, me between Paris and Brussels with also second lockdown, we feel that the world is on freeze, it's on pause, and nothing's working. But if you start speaking with people around the world, then you see that Asia is open. China, Vietnam, they're open. The borders are closed, but the national demand for activities, for fitness, for movement, for wellness is absolutely booming. I was discussing with Alejandro Leo, who is the ambassador for the World Wellness Weekend in Mexico, and he's based in Tulum. He's telling me that right now the hotels have a very high occupation in the state of Quintana Roo, the Riviera Maya from Cancun to Tulum. Spas are exceeding budgets. Fitness clubs are packed with locals. It's just amazing what's happening. So wellness is here, and wellness is here to stay. And there's health and wellness is on everybody's mind right now. So we need facilitators. We need accelerators. We need to put in place the the ways to provide that on another level. I believe our industry, especially mine, spa, massage. I have joined the board member. I'm one of the board members of the International Massage Association, and I was one of the judges for the World Championship in massage. So massage is really something that I've been passionate for a long time, training, educating, creating signature massages for cosmetic brands and hotel companies. But we're not just in the skincare business. We need to have our talented professionals, our motivated professionals, estheticians and therapists and receptionists to just move to keep the skincare, because it's the heart and soul of our industry, but also in a more holistic way, as Dave said, the take care, the self-care. And we need to be guides and mentors. Mentor is definitely a Greek word. It's the name of the person that was helping and guide. Was Ulyss was away, and for Telemac to grow as a man. There are so many things that investors, GMs can use this time to train their teams in traditional therapeutic modalities. Just look at Canada. Canada has massage clinics still open because the therapeutic benefits of a deep tissue massage, of a Swedish massage, of reflexology, aromatherapy, energy healing, Chinate Song, Twina for China, Ayurvedic treatments are known, well documented, and help save money on sick days or health costs. So this is definitely something that people should be looking in. Two Greek modalities or modalities based on Greek words that I would like to share also. Greece should be, again, the place to say that sophrology was invented there. The fact to be well with your mind and the knowledge of this sophrology, but also haptonomy, the knowledge of touch and how we can touch not just pregnant women or not just people as they take their last breaths in old age. This is usually where autonomy is, but change the approach we have about touch so that we don't, like I said, touch skin, but touch lives and the many lives. We should be implementing more weekends of wellness. Of course, we pledge for a World Wellness Weekend, but there are 52 weekends throughout the year, and there should definitely be more weekends of wellness. Yes, international tourists will come back one day. McKinsey says maybe 22, 23 to reach the same levels at 2019, but there's huge local demand, regional demand, national demand, and more weekends of wellness, short breakaways or staycations could be organized, short health retreats for people. It could be in a place, or some of the venues with their team could start being mobile, provided they take the test and they follow all safety regulations. But look at the Chopra Center, for instance, in America. Chopra Center is now closed, but the Chopra Center retreats are still happening and soon will be taking place in Mexico, in January in Maui, and then Canada, California, focusing on leadership and cognitive enhancement and brain training. This is why I would like to say we have been focused on people during their vacation, during their holidays, as hotel guests or resort guests. Why don't we look at them also as people in their corporate dimension and help them with boosting grit, peak resiliency, creativity, efficiency, and leadership is, and God knows we need more leaders in this world. So this is definitely something we can work on. And while we're still, for some businesses, and I'll close on this for this point, that while some people are in lockdown and cannot work in their business, they should be working on their business and working in the communications and conversations they can have with their guests, just like Six Senses at home with Six Senses, which was a fabulous and phenomenal success. Anna Burstam, Vice President of Wellbeing, mentioned that some of the podcasts that she's been organizing have reached 30,000 people. I'll end on this, 30,000 people. This is great brand awareness for wellness brands.
No,
can I just say, sorry, can I just interrupt and say, Jean-Guy hit on two very big points that I think are worth thinking about. One is the fact that this year, because of the disruption, And you're perfectly correct. I mean, I normally live in Bangkok. You know, I came back down to Sydney because my 2 adult children live here. So about 2 months ago, and I'm seeing out the next couple of months down here. What I've noticed in both Thailand and in Australia is that within state borders, at least, people are traveling around. 2 weeks ago, I drove 8 hours up the coast to visit my brother who lives in a town 8 hours up the coast, famous town called Byron Bay. And he basically said to me, what COVID? You know, it's packed with internal tourists. It's, you know, it is what it's one of the most famous beach resorts in Australia. And it is just, you know, people are just going up there to relax. So one of the things, though, is that I think the opportunity for wellness that you just mentioned, like, things have changed. The way we work, our work patterns, work from home, for example. And an interesting piece of research that I've been working on lately has been looking at some of the impacts of work from home that we actually haven't thought about. And I'll give you a simple example. I'm sure that for the three of you and most of the people listening to you, if I said, do you miss commuting to work? Most people will go, no way, I don't miss it at all. But here's the interesting thing, Jungi. A lot of people actually, when you get into it, are saying, yeah, actually, I sort of do. So, for example, in Asia, when we look at the 10 largest cities in East and Southeast Asia, so Japan, China, Southeast Asia, in the 10 largest cities, the typical office worker, his daily commute is just under 4 hours every day. Now, normally, if you'd said 12 months ago, I can guarantee you 100% of those people 12 months ago would have said, yes, I hate it. But this year, because they've sometimes had months without it, and because sometimes in a lot of businesses, they're now going back to 3 days in the office and 2 days at working from home or whatever, a lot of people are saying, I actually miss the commute. And why do they miss the commute? Because of wellness issues, because the commute was actually downtime. We don't think of the commute as downtime. We think of it as sitting in traffic and getting aggravated. We think of it as crowded buses or trains. But when you think about it over time, when you're used to it, suddenly, and it's not there, and you realise that 4 hours I'm sitting at home working. And I'm not getting the 4 hours of just listening to the radio, reading a book on the train, just staring into space, or just sitting in traffic, maybe getting a bit aggravated with the traffic, but in the back of my head, it's the perfect third place. And this is what's actually, weirdly, we're now discovering that our daily commute is actually the third place in our lives. It's the separation between work and home and all that involves.
Thank you.
So there's this fact where people are now sort of becoming aware of the fact that if you're now in a work situation where you don't have that, or you're going to have less commuting, is the employer or is the employee going to find ways to have that downtime, and how are you going to do that? So, you know, there are some interesting things that are coming out of this year that we would never have thought of that suggest that we've got to rethink our approaches to wellness and have to think about that as well. I'll give you another example. Now, this may not apply in Europe where you all live, but in many parts of Asia, a lot of people that work in offices hang around at the office. Now, we all hear about these incredible hours they work, but in fact, some of it is just the office is more spacious than home. So crowded as your office is, the facilities, it's got air conditioning on. And when you live in a place like Bangkok, where I do, yeah, free air conditioning. This is fantastic. I'll stay here. You know, this is all part of wellness, because this is all part of things when you start to see a big shift in the way in which people work or don't work, or where they work or how they work. Companies and organizations have to take on a new role to help them think about their wellness. Like, where are they going to relax? How are they going to relax? Is it a wellness weekend every weekend? Do the companies put on more wellness weekends or wellness Wednesday afternoons or whatever it is, right? The hump day wellness sessions or something, I don't know. But there's going to be a change with all of that, right? The other thing that Jean-Guy mentioned was some of the factors that, you know, that you mentioned, like Greek Greek terms that maybe we don't think about or we don't use enough inside the industry. But I'd say that the Greek industry doesn't use them enough because I've done some work, you know, in the last 12 months, looking amongst other things at the strength of the connection between different countries and wellness. So, you know, wellness and Italy, wellness in the United States, wellness in India, wellness in Japan. Used a particular AI platform that looks at all the internet, all of the content of the internet. And what it's showing up is that places like Greece actually doesn't do a very good job of connecting things. So, you know, it's in an okay position, but could be a lot stronger if the industry and if people writing and publishing on the internet and all sorts of platforms were connecting with connecting content that brought alive wellness more specifically and used more consistently terms that made a bigger claim and kept on. You know, it's the old rule of marketing or advertising. You know, tell them again, explain how it works, and then tell them again, right? And sometimes I think in the wellness industry, people tend to be a bit lofty in their thinking. You know, in the past, it's all been a bit, this is great, you know, this is really meaningful. And a little bit more thought about how do you hard sell some of this stuff, you know, not hard sell your own property, but hard sell the concepts of wellness and the connection with why Greek wellness has some real strengths. What are they? How do you bring those alive more clearly? For example, do a simple Google search and Google search Greek wellness and see what comes up. I did that this afternoon. It's pretty pathetic.
It's true. It's true.
But try it again for whichever country you happen to be associated with, and I can tell you most countries are doing a bad job at it. But it's the opportunity of how you tighten the connections between things.
No, David, thank you very much for that. And you answered your question, how Greece, because Greece has all the elements to develop the brand wellness, actually we don't. And I think that you answered the question very, very clearly now. And thank you, Zangi, for the previous answer to that. So I'm going now to Andrew. Andrew, you said to remember to ask you about the Aphrodite Hills. We actually visited Aphrodite Hills 10, 11 years ago when with George Stavel is there, and the property is amazing, that's for sure. So before we go to answer the next question, please share with us this. And just to ask you a question and follow up after this about the Aphrodite Hills. Is Greece ready to develop wellness communities, which is something, as David said, we can connect things? And does our characteristic as country can support the investment? And concepts like sensei can be implemented in Greece? Thank you.
Wow, a lot of questions, and actually I can link them all. Hopefully I can link them all together and follow up on what Dave's just been talking about, because Aphrodite Hills is a wonderful example. So Aphrodite Hills, I don't often single out individuals for a great deal of praise, but I'm going to single out Platanos Lanitis of Lanitis Development in Cyprus, because back in the year 2000, they were developing Aphrodite Hills, which was still in those days just some plateaus on a piece of land near the Rock of Aphrodite. And through him and Angelos Markides, who was their CEO, they took a chance on me to develop something to do with wellness at that place. And I said, well, okay, I want to build a health club. I want to build a health retreat, a health spa. But I need to have something sympathetic to Greece. And that's how it started. So I did my research. And actually, if you look at the whole concept of wellness, the Greeks started it, not the Romans, the Greeks. If you look at the concept of a thermae was a place of public bathing. Why? Because bathing facilities were not always, you didn't have plumbing in your toilet in your homes and have your toilet in your home. you went to the public baths, where you not only did your business, but you also bathed and got cleansed. And as the thermes became more and more significant, they added on the other parts of wellness. Hey, let's put a gymnasium in there, which was not a gymnasium where you did fitness. The gymnasium was the library, where you got knowledge. And then from there, you built the fitness part of it, and you added the fitness component in it. And the thermes got grander and grander and grander. But they actually were thermes, probably a word that people would more universally know, they were wellness centers. They were the people and they were really wellness centers. That's where they kept the whole city clean by having people go in and doing their business there and getting cleansed there. So when we did Aphrodite Hills, I built the concept of the retreats completely on an ancient Greek therme. And the whole reason why we put kind of a cloistered area, one is because it's a sanctuary of wellness. And the cloistered area down below, for anybody familiar with it, the lower area is actually the Greek bathing area where you do your baths and ablutions there. And then above is actually where you did the fitness and the treatments and so on. But if you look at Lanitis and what they did in building the whole of Aphrodite Hills, they built a residential development. That's what it was, a residential development. But it was a residential development absolutely built around wellness. One of the first people that we engaged was an environmentalist for environmental conservation. They focused on sustainability. They focused on the nature reserve at the back of it and the beach at the front and how to develop and cleanse the beach at the front area of it. They built homes that were a phenomenal success, built around the golf course. So it is a remarkable success story. I'm very pleased to see that it's gone from strength to strength. And as you say, George Tavalis, who is so well known throughout the whole of Cyprus and Greece, he took it on and has kept it going. It's a remarkable place. But so to come back to your question of how can that translate to other opportunities, Greece has got one, an abundance of water, two, an abundance of natural beauty, both man-made and natural, and you have in most parts a very, very suitable climate for year-round opportunities. In most parts, I mean, I'm living in Sweden right now. I haven't lived in the cold for 30 years, and it's not even freezing yet. But Greece has, and of course you've got the skiing as well. So you've got everything that nature could possibly give you. Now we get back to the whole crux of this and how is Greece going to develop? Because you've got examples. You look at Lunda, you look at the blue, what is the Blue Lagoon, no, not that's Iceland. The one out also on Crete.
Blue Palace.
Blue Palace. That's
Blue
it.
Palace,
Thank you, Jongi. Yeah, so you've got wonderful examples developing in Greece. But where I think you now can get into is communities and residencies. And you can get into not only in perhaps upgrading old towns and villages to make them actual wellness locations where people will want to live in them, because we don't need to commute anymore, do we, Dave? We can stay at home. And so why not have these villages resurrected into wellness centers and use the natural surroundings and beauty around it? So you've got the opportunities there. But we come back to the part that Jean-Guy mentioned right at the minute, and that's collaboration and cooperation. You need champions that are going to take this and embrace this. And those champions need then to have the tools and the resources and the people that can steer them in the right direction and motivate them and help them grow. So you're talking of Sensei, the last bit, and then I'll let others speak, because you asked me. So Sensei, what is Sensei? Well, Sensei is a company that I went on, and again, having wonderful people around me that give me the opportunity to fulfill my craziest dreams. Sensei was owned by Larry Ellison, or is owned by Larry Ellison, who's got a reasonable amount of wealth. And he owns the island of Lanai in Hawaii, and he is basically converting the entire island into a wellness island. He has hydroponic farms that will actually are really valuable because they use 1/10 less water than a normal farm, 1/10 less of the land. And on that particular island, that was actually the fertility of the land was decimated by pineapples. This helps actually regenerate farming in a place that was just basically barren. So that's one. He's reinvested in the community and got the community going, and then provided community facilities such as a theatre, such as improving the roads, such as sports facilities at the school. And the bit that I was connected in was providing wellness retreats, working hand in hand with companies like Four Seasons to be able to build wellness destinations. And part of the big program that I had when I was there was saying, listen, if you really want wellness, this to be a wellness island, then all these international tourists that are visiting here and spending their money on wellness retreats, I want them to volunteer time back to the island. So I'm asking them to donate part of their stay to work on heritage restoration projects or on indigenous plant replantation projects, hand in hand with the local organizations that took care of those things on the island. And hey presto, now you get a wellness island, a wellness community that are proud of where they live, and you get a place that people want to come and see. And I think that those kind of opportunities certainly exist throughout Greece, not just on the islands, but on the mainland as well. But it does need a champion to take it on. And if that champion takes it on, your company, Stavros, myself, and many other experts around the world will be more than happy to try and help them out and get them on the right direction to achieving that. But we cannot do that. I cannot do that as a consultant and advisor unless I have a champion that's ready to take it on. And the last word about that, I would say, is wellness, as we've seen, means many, many different things to many, many people. And you don't have to be everything. Don't try and be everything. But before you invest a single cent, dollar, euro, dime, anything of your money, before you invest in it, figure out what you want. What are your values? What do you want to represent? What do you want to build? And who do you want it to appeal to? And when you can answer that and says, that's what I believe in, that's what I want, then you can get the team together and start the investment.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you so much. I think that, you know, collaboration and connectedness is the two words that we have to refine and define in Greece. Of course, Zangi, it's your turn, and now you're live, and of course you can you can say what do you want, and then I have not the last question, is a question before went up the session, and there's a couple of questions that the audience is asking. You visited Greece before in Blue Palace, and you visited Euphoria Retreat in Mistras in Greece. So something is happening in Greece over the last years. What are advantages in terms of training and people? Do we have the right people to build wellness in Greece? And what about training? What we need to be focused on that as the owner and founder of Tip Touch, which is you, as an educator, please.
Thank you very much. So many things that I would like to touch on, but I'm also conscious of time, and I'd like to give more time to Dave also, because we had the chance to start this conversation with Andrew, and I'd love to hear also from his insights. But a few things that I'd like to say about Greece is that if people listen to us and they have not been yet, they must promise themselves to go. You have places that are bucket lists, and right now there's a pent-up demand to go to places that can be really off your bucket list. Santorini, Corfu. For those who have read the book, the novel, The Island, or have seen the TV series, very popular in Greece, it's happening in Spinalonga, in the city of Elunda in Crete, where Blue Palace is, and where I had the chance with my teams to train the team every year for 8 years straight, always introducing new guest experiences, trainings. The teams are fantastic. The people, the Greek people that I've met are they're highly social. They live as a group. They want to learn as a group. They want to grow as a team. It's just fantastic. It's no surprise to see how many finalists there were in the World Spine Wellness Awards this year from Greece, also from Cyprus, quite a few, but definitely from Greece. No surprise to see that Euphoria in Mistras has received awards from Condé Nast or Tailor's. It's just fantastic. Andrew was right to say that fitness, we call it fitness and we think we're reinventing, but Athens had physical activity mandatory for the citizens. Sparta And for anyone who hasn't read the Greek history, at least you must have seen the movie. You know that Sparta was a city you didn't want to mess with. This is the fighting spirit that people can still enjoy, not just joining Spartan races around the world, but actually going there and seeing it. Mindfulness, everyone talks about mindfulness, and we turn to meditation, we turn to Buddhist monks, and rightfully so, they have a lot to say. Or we can turn to our own religions, because there's also a big culture of meditation in Christianity. But what about finding meaning and purpose through philosophy? If such a place as a wellness community with real estate, also known as heal estate when it's including wellness, could be created in Greece, I'd love to go and spend a retreat, or maybe go there for when I retire, because of 250 days of sun, because of the Mediterranean diet, let thy food be thy medicine. It's not a French person who said that, not even English when we quote it in English. It was Hippocrates, the father of medicine. So you have everything inside, and I'd love to sit down with a philosopher, a modern day philosopher, to better understand about Plato, Socrates, Stoicism, Epicure, and to feel again, and God knows the world needs that, euphoria. We need to be sharing euphoria. But two words that I'd like to just add as a thought also: virtual reality. Yes, we have saved time through commuting. Are we using our times well? Do you remember the movie Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger, when people could not travel and they went to places, travel agencies, and they would log into somewhere and they would experience something? Now it is possible with virtual reality. It's possible with a piece of cardboard that you put and you put them on. You can tune into YouTube, and you don't need even this. But there are so many things. Then there's the Oculus and everything. Facebook is in there. It's so cheap. Virtual reality is not new. It's old. It's been 10 years in the making, and so many visitors bureau have used it. For instance, there's one, the city of Mine. Mine wants to for people to, before they get to Mine in Germany, they want to understand what it is. So you just open and you create, and you just fold it. It takes a second, and boom, right there, you can start visualizing something. And it creates an experience with the storytelling. You have the great places. You have the storytellers out of your mythology, out of your great heroes. Yes, I believe, just like we've seen with Costa Navarino, with the vision of a boy who lived there and said, one day I'll return there and I'll create something. And then he became to be an amazing businessman with ships. Then he said, I'm going to buy every single parcel as I can. I'm going to recreate land. I'm going to plant thousands of olive trees, and it's going to be Costa Navarino. There are definitely, and with a big sustainability project in there, and golf courses, there's all the potential, all the energy. And I believe, yes, there needs people like you, my friend Stavros, with the things you've been doing with Amanzoe, the things you've been doing with Evzin, the things you're doing right now with your hotel, and people like Andrew. Absolutely, the world is your oyster, and Greece certainly is.
Thank you, and I would like to mention here that, as I said before, things are happening in Greece, and I think that Greece is on the wellness map the last 2 years due to the Euphoria Retreat, which is the first wellness destination in Greece. And I was very pleased when I saw in a survey, Greece was on the map of wellness resorts. Until now, Greece was not there. So it's something is happening, that's for sure. And owners and people that believe and have passion, that's like Mrs. Marina Efremoglu, and of course, all we are consultants, directors, managers. We need to connect with people like you, Andrew, David, Zangi, and from the USA, Amy McDonald, Mia Kirikos. Everybody needs to connect and develop what Greece has to show to the world. And I would like to ask David about Greece as well. and because he has to share some wellness narratives, could you please share with us these wellness narratives, as you told me in our email conversation? And Greece is famous for the tourism products until now. And do you think that these wellness narratives will have something to say to us in Greece in order to transform our product and have more euphoria retreats in Greece? Unmute yourself, David, unmute. It's okay.
It's very unusual for me to be mute. So the first thing I would say is that when we talk about what's the purpose of this discussion, so if the purpose is just to get people to want to go to specific retreats, yeah, of course you can play to that. But I'll go back to my point, which is that if you are, and as good as all of you will be at the businesses you're in, but the truth is that, you know, there's more power in thinking about the total entity of Greece than it is about how I get more people to come to my retreat. And so, again, you know, to carry on some of the points that, you know, the other guys have mentioned, you know, Greece has a lot of advantages over a lot of other marketplaces. One simple example, I had mentioned, Stavros, you're talking about, I'd mentioned that I did a piece of research, again, using this AI technology, where we looked at 150 wellness narratives. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, a narrative is a storyline, right? And we looked at 150 storylines related to wellness. Now, some of those were things like wellness tourism type narratives, destination narratives, different types of wellness business narratives. But what we then did was the platform that I use plots those and was able to identify, of the 150, which are the narratives that are going to be most transformative of the wellness industry in the next couple of years. I could spend half an hour explaining how that works, and you can all get in touch with me and I will. But the interesting thing is what it found out. The three top narratives that are transforming the industry, the number one is nutrition. The number one narrative is wellness and nutrition. Number two is wellness and skincare. And the number three was wellness and gut health. Okay, now what's really interesting from that perspective is two of those three directly relate to an opportunity for Greece, because Greece already has a reputation for having pretty healthy food. Now, I'm not talking about eating, you know, French fries stuffed into bread rolls with lots of, you know, fatty lamb, right? But if you go back to the blue zones, the blue zone thing, right? And you know, the blue zones is something that has been around now for 5 or 6 years, and people in the industry know about it. The bulk of the population doesn't. But people are now very interested in longevity, and this year has perhaps highlighted longevity. Greece has a history of being, you know, I know it's one small island that actually is the blue zone in the book, but Greece is associated with being a blue zone of longevity brought about primarily by things like diet. And that's something that I think Greece should be promoting more, because it doesn't do enough to look at some of the factors that align with what we're seeing as the growth areas of the wellness industry. So again, you know, things like gut health and the way in which the use of olive oil, for example, which of course, you know, could apply to Spain and other places as well, or Italy, but you know, Greece has a real, you know, long history of that in association with some of these things. But that brings me back to the second point that I wanted to raise, which is one of you guys just mentioned that, you know, McKinsey or somebody is saying, oh yeah, global tourism might be back by in 2 or 3 years' time, it might be back to what it was last year. Well, that probably is true. Let's hope so, because I work with a lot of industries and companies in the tourism industry. But here's the thing: the pent-up interest is what's important. Now, let me put it this way. When the world starts to open up, what do you want to be the first destination people want to go to? Well, obviously you want it, Stavros, you want it to be Greece, right? Now, you know, and you can talk to any half-decent marketer in the world and they're going to tell, if they've got any brains, they know that the time when you should be doing the most advertising is the time when your product is not available. That this is the time when you should be pushing the advantages of Greece. This is the time when, Jean-Guy's got a very good point about virtual reality. There is no reason why you should not have virtual wellness resorts in every home in the world.
Yeah.
That everybody that has a mobile, you know, everybody that has a smartphone, which is not the whole world, it's about a third of the world, but everybody that has a smartphone available to them should have a Greek virtual experience on there. And that should be then tied to a real food experience. One of the great boom industries of this year has been the delivery of fresh food, home delivered food, right? You know, Stay Fresh, Fresh Life, a bunch of different companies in different parts of the world that deliver all the fresh ingredients and the recipe, and then you go off and do it. Well, you know, Greece should be aligning with those companies with, hey, you know, here's the recipe, here's the fresh food, it's delivered to your home. You learn how to make Greek dishes, but let's go on and go while you're cooking and while you're eating the food. Hey, go do a virtual tour of Greek resorts. And by the way, to your point, here's a little bit of, you know, Greek philosophy 101 about how to deal with mental stress. You know, and let's go back and look at some of the philosophers and some of the wisdom that is 2,500 years old about how to deal with life. It's an interesting thing when you start putting all of that together that Greece has to offer. Other countries will have, you know, combinations like that, but Greece, because of it, has a unique sort of sensibility that it can do that, and it'll be building up the experience now. My point is that if you're a resort, what you have to do is you have to take the resort off the property you're in. That waiting for people just to come to enjoy it is one thing. But if you want to be really successful, you have to take the experience offshore. You have to deliver the experience. You know, there's a phrase in the last 6 months in the marketing world, which is the number one thing that came to life this year is we now live in a come to me economy. Everything is about come to you in your apartment or your house. How does Greece come to the apartment that I'm using in Sydney right now? How does Greece come to my apartment in Bangkok? In a real sense, right? And real sensibility. And how do you take advantage of that? Which, by the way, will only make me more and more want to go and actually one day actually get to a real resort, get to Crete or, you know, back to Sparta. You know, I once spent 2 weeks running across the Peloponnese. It was the toughest 2 weeks of my life, but we literally ran a marathon every day for 10 straight days. We did a 42k run every day for 10 straight days around the Peloponnese. It was a long time ago. I was a lot fitter, but very interesting experience. Sir, John Gee, I think you. What are you putting your finger up? You want to do it too, or?
No, I'm not that good a runner. But just very briefly, I believe there is a big chance for people to jump on the bandwagon, to deliver, or to create an immersive experience with just, you know, it can be a movie on a phone. It can be using you know, goggles, whatever. One thing is that the World Wellness Weekend in 2021 is going to embrace virtual reality, and we're going to be partnering with the big events. It's the first time I speak about this publicly because it's all signed off now, with an event that's going to take place end of April and early May. A 36 hours of traveling around the world, showcasing the most beautiful places so that people can travel from their home to their bucket list places and make a shopping list of the places they want to go to as soon as the borders open and travel restrictions are lifted. I believe Greece like many other countries are jumping on this bandwagon, like Mexico with Quintana Roo, with Malaysia, with Tourism Malaysia, and many others. I know the city of Dubai is super interested to really showcase the experiences so that people can be there even before they get there. So that's definitely, so moving forward, not just with one W, but forward with WWW, World Wellness Weekend.
No, thank you, Zangi, for announcing that. It's really amazing. And I have the last question before we close. And there is some questions from the audience, but due to time, I will ask the one before I'm asking the last question. So, what is your advice? I don't know, Adriu, Zangi, and David. Adriu, maybe you start first. What is your advice? What steps an investor in Greece needs to follow in order to create the wellness destination of the future? And as David said, is to get out of the four walls and bring it to the world and make it more accessible.
Well, that's a difficult question to answer in about 2 minutes, because it really is almost, it depends. So let me first of all reiterate the first point I made earlier, and that is you really have to understand what are your goals and your objectives and who's your target market, because without that you can invest millions in something that just doesn't work, and there's plenty of places around the world that I've seen that happen. The second thing I actually do believe, I touched on that, but I actually do believe that there's a great opportunity for wellness communities to thrive and develop in Greece. And the wellness communities mean that you really do take the full holistic approach, where you look at the wellness and welfare of the people living there and of the visitors that come and visit it. And therefore, it needs a collaborative, unitive approach where you've got private and public investment taking place. And I think that we focus on gated communities because that seems to be the one where you get the highest premiums on your property prices. But it doesn't have to be a gated. It could be a village that adapts and says, okay, as a village, I'm going to take on and make our village a center of wellness. Okay, what resources do we have? What natural resources do we have in the village? Why would people want to come and stay with us? And then embrace every aspect of what we've been talking about. I think Dave mentioned nutrition, and that confirms with other researches that I've seen that the whole concept of healthy eating is really, really in focus now. One of the owners of Sensei was a doctor, an oncologist that was really has written a couple of very good books on a short guide to a long life. And in there, I mean, his basic number one concept on nutrition and on food was stop eating processed food. That was just, eat natural food and take out that simple act alone. Now, if you think of Greece with your markets and your local produce, a village could embrace the entire concept of wellness and make it not only a place that people want to come and visit, but a place where people want to live. And that's, I think, a golden opportunity. Of course, we've seen your first ever wellness retreat with Euphoria coming on board. And we had the precursors to that with several of the hotels that we've mentioned. But those kind of opportunities. The other thing that I think we have not mentioned in this, that I actually is not unique to Greece, but it actually originated, if you think, what word is that? And that's a word that is so important, thalassetherapy. And of course, this is a term that you could almost trademark to your country. And boy, have you got the resources to do that. And that's an area, actually, ironically, the best thalasser I've actually seen is in Quiberon in France, which has got a most remarkable place for that. But that is being used as not only a general place for the general public to go, but as treatments for high quality teams that want to do rehabilitation. because rehabilitation is a lot easier in water than it is on land. So that's a term that could be taken on board. So you're just buzzing with ideas, and I could talk for a long time, but I hope I've given enough ideas just in that short moment.
It's true, Andrew, and thank you very much for that. As you know, we have many thalassos centers in Greece, and
yes, we do, and hot springs.
Yeah, it's true, and the government now starts to change the laws in order the thermal springs to be more privately, in order for private sector and the public sector combine their forces and create the new models, because now it's on public, so municipalities own the thermal springs. So there's a lot of work to do that, but and something is happening.
If I just give you an example, so I won't name it, but I've just been living in California for the last 3 years, and just outside of Los Angeles are a number of hot springs, and one of those hot springs, the average daily customers is 300 a day, all paying a fee to go in there. And on top of that, they've now built 22 treatment rooms that are now full to capacity, and that's local demand. That's local demand to go to a place like that. So privatization or getting private investment into hot springs and thalassos therapies, I think, is very good.
No, and what I wanted to say is that we're in talks with some people into the government and some doctors, and so we're trying to make a cluster in order to see how we can facilitate that process and take the privatization for thermal springs. But thalassotherapy centers in Greece are very famous, like Aldema, like in Divani in Athens.
That many people famous in Greece, and they're hardly known outside of Greece.
It's true. It's true. So
another thing you just mentioned, sorry, now you obviously you've triggered me, and I could talk for hours now. But you've just talked on another thing that I think is going to be a major new development in the world. For the first time, and COVID maybe have sparked this, but for the first time ever, we're now getting the potential, because it's not new, of serious integration of medical and wellness together. There are examples around the world of where this exists anyway, but now I think the medical industry have recognized that the wellness industry has a value.
And before we close, this is something that I would like to ask and share with the audience, is your last words for the people in the world after COVID-19 global health crisis. So will wellness democratize and be wellness for all? So we'll see more people understand what is wellness, and what is your opinion over the 5 to 7 years about the wellness industry? I don't know, Jean-Guy would like to take that, and then David and Andrew.
Yeah, it's always hard to give to ask a Frenchman to give a final word, because we're passionate and we speak a lot. So and this conversation really is buzzing with ideas. But very briefly, it's true that the COVID-19 has been a mega disruptor, decimating the hospitality and tourism industry, but also bringing amazing opportunity to rethink our value proposition. And I'll be more than happy to listen to Dave's presentation one day of his 150 narratives. We've only heard 3. I'd love to hear the rest, but definitely rethinking the value proposition for individuals, for organizations, and for cities, definitely, and in that order, in alignment with the SDGs. Health is definitely a relationship with our body and our mind with the doctor, but wellness is a relationship between our body and our mind with ourselves. It is our responsibility to add self-care and take care to skincare. So there's no going back. There's only going forward. And the last image that I wanted to share with you is that right now, with the stress, you know, it is proven that with stress, our eyesights are really focused. When you're stressed, you don't have peripheral vision. You only have a very targeted vision. And right now, everything that everyone can see is the tunnel, and hopefully the light at the end of the tunnel. We don't have peripheral. But if we and in the hope of a vaccine, and once the vaccine arrives, governments say everything's going to be better, but we have to wait until that, maybe next summer. So the end of the tunnel. Let's be the light where we are right now. And if we are in a tunnel, let's be the light inside the tunnel. And you know, there's a magic thing, a wonderful thing about, not magic, but wonderful thing about tunnels is that when they're very long, and we're talking months into a tunnel, if you have a light, you may be able to see the emergency exit on the side. You don't have only one entry point and one exit point. You have lots of other points. So where is your emergency exit where you will rethink your value proposition so that you can pivot and do something else and share that light with others? We need to be mentors to others. We need to guide others, and this is our time to shine.
Thank you very much, Zangi. Mentorship is something that you started, and I think that we have to continue. So David, please, your last word, and what is your opinion about the future and wellness and democratization of wellness?
Well, in a weird sort of sense, I think this year has helped it dramatically, and for three major reasons. It's an amazing thing that if you look at TV and YouTube and those sorts of things, the last 10 years we've seen an amazing growth in cooking competition shows, MasterChef and those types of shows.
It's true.
But what was really interesting was that while the shows were increasingly popular, people were cooking less at home. So they weren't actually watching the shows to learn how to cook. They were watching the shows as a sort of soap opera. Now, what's actually happened in 2020 in COVID is one of the interesting side effects of COVID has been that we have a lot of young people who were stuck at home for 1, 2, 3, locked in for months and months, depending on which city and country you were in. And many of them, for the first time ever, were learning how to cook. Now, they were doing it through YouTube video classes. And so we've seen the massive growth in every country in the world of these YouTube chefs, not famous chefs, but just, Mama Zita, who's a chef who basically teaches people how to cook Italian pasta. There's a famous guy here in Australia who swears non-stop, and he's actually was a stand-up comedian, but he's got a real passion about never use bottled sauce. So he basically has created this series of films about how to make your own sauce for everything. Now, he's become one of the biggest stars in Australia out of that, and young people in Australia are learning how to cook for the first time in maybe 2 generations. That's happening. I'm seeing that in country after country after country. The second thing is, Andrew said, when you were talking about the research you did on tourism and wellness tourism, the passion for air, the passion for getting outside to just go for a walk. When we were locked in, depending on the rules of the different cities you lived in or whatever, but when I was locked in for 3 months in Bangkok, we were allowed only to walk to our nearest supermarket and back. Now, that 500-meter walk and back every day was a precious, we would walk as slowly as possible to cover that 500 meters, right? Just to be outside. And I think that's one of the things that we're seeing that, people all over the world are reappreciating just fresh air, just go for a walk in the park. We're seeing in cities all over the world that as the city opens up, people are spending more time in parks. And they're trying to appreciate that. The third thing that we're also seeing around the world is that companies are having, many of them have thought of it themselves. They haven't, it's not a rule or anything, but they've just figured out, look, the role of a brand is actually to either provide help, hope, or hijinks. So a brand's role is either to help people figure out how to overcome a problem or do something they need to do in life, or it's about helping them out of a bit of a hole and a mess that they're in at the moment, or it's hijinks, or a brand that's there to help provide distraction, to make life seem a little bit funnier, or a little bit better, or a little bit more, more loving. Now, if you take that simple formula, we've always known this, but what's happened is that crisis times focus. And I think that's another big opportunity for anybody in the wellness industry, is to think about those 3 things: help, hope, and hijinks. Which one are you doing? Mm-hmm. What's your focus on that? Because ultimately, as a brand and as a business, the thing that you have to focus on is what do people really want? That's the core of all good business, is just understanding what do people want and how am I going to fulfill that. So those three things are the guidelines for what people want: help, hope, or hijinks. Figure out which one you're going to be good at.
Thank you very much, David. I will think about that. I will take it as a homework for sure.
Okay.
So, Andrew, you will be the last one that give us your ideas and thoughts about the future after COVID global health crisis, COVID-19.
Well, I have been in the hospitality business for the last 30 years, and we've gone through some pretty tough crises in my career, from the tsunami of 2004 that hit Thailand and Sri Lanka and the Maldives, where we had a number of hotels, to the 2008 crisis, 2009 financial crisis, where we decided to open up Mandarin Oriental on the Strip in Las Vegas at the time where Palmer of Las Vegas, Sin City, and tourism bad, and wellness retreats were getting a bad name, because Goldman Sachs had just done a complete trip to one. However, we bounced back. Everything came back, and everything came back very quickly. And I think actually, to end this whole webinar, one of optimism, is I think the industry will bounce back quickly. I'm actually more inclined to believe it will be the summer of next year, because I believe that society will learn to live with COVID, irrespective of whether vaccines are there or not. There's only so long that you can keep people locked up and confined before you get revolutions, and we already have seen that in some, particularly in the UK, if you look at some of the rebellious nature against government restrictions there. So governments will have to learn to cope with it, and people will learn to live with COVID in their society. The other thing, on that note of optimism, is to the points that have been mentioned throughout this webinar, is that people are more aware of the need to look after themselves. That's that wellness of taking care of yourself. And they're more aware that there's no shortage of information about wellness worldwide. So people are more aware about it. And on that note, I live in Sweden. Our golf course here, has posted a profit for the first time in 8 years, increase in memberships, more people playing golf. Why? One is the thing that you can do without spreading COVID, because apart from perhaps your partner with you, you're not mixing with anybody else. And two, it's outdoors in nature. And three, it's a healthy pursuit. The other thing that I've noticed in our village that I live here is that the number of people that are walking. You go out, everybody are out there walking in nature. I'm fortunate, I've got 2 waterfalls not too far away from me where I can go out and walk. And I think, oh great, I never see anybody. No, it's like I'm in a motorway right now. Everybody's walking out. It's fantastic. That's right. It's domestic tourism in a way. It's domestic awareness of what there is. So democratization of wellness is just a marketing word. It's there already, it exists. It's just spreading the availabilities that the luxury domain have and making them more affordable for the masses. And that occurs. Formula One racing cars, the analogy of that. The Formula One racing cars, millions and millions of dollars on researching cars, and yet what we get as a domestic driver of our own vehicle were things like anti-skid brakes that were necessary in Formula One racing car, and have now become standard practice in almost any vehicle you get. So if you look at sort of the wellness that's been the provision of the wealthy, it will eventually filter down to everybody, and that will, because people will have learned how to scale it up and deliver it to more people, and technology's got a big part to play in that. So I am an optimist. I see a really healthy future in wellness. I actually see it breaking out into more niches, like the Wellness Tourism Association we created because we saw a need in that area. There'll be more of these coming. Wellness real estate is going to evolve into a science that is no longer just sticking in marketing material. Hey, we've got the healthiest houses on the block. You'll actually now have to substantiate that with pretty good evidence. So it's all coming, and it's all great future. and it will come back much higher than when we left it, when COVID started to affect and impact us. So if you can hang in there, if you can last out, I'm predicting it will be, summer next year will be good.
Andrew, so many thanks for all these last words. I think that today, me, and I think most of the audience became more wiser and more optimistic for the future. I think that we had, tons of thoughts and ideas and insights about how we can move towards the future. I would like to thank you, David, Andrew, and Zangi from the tip of my heart for all these conversation and talk we had today. This is a series of talks, and before we close, I would like Mrs. Natasha Karadza, which is the managing director of Eurotel, just to tell us, a couple of words. Natasha, please, you're live, and you can serve.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me, see me?
Yes, of course.
Greetings to everyone. It has really been an extremely interesting 2 days with loads of informations and insights on the wellness industry scene. And I think the key takeaway is that things are changing towards a completely different approach than what it was in the past, where the main focus was just having a spa in a hotel and offering therapies within a specific area, and bringing it out there through several collective wellness experiences which can be adapted to the needs of each business. It is also more than obvious, I think, how technology now plays a more important role than ever in achieving this goal, especially amidst the global pandemic that we are all experiencing, which has completely already changed within the course of a few months, just a few months, how people view wellness. And it is, I think, really important that hotels realize that and adjust their business model accordingly to follow, the new era. And it is really imperative, otherwise we are not going to be able to go through this. So I would like to really thank all of the amazing speakers that we had the honor to host, and I really look forward to the next talk series. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Natasha, thank you very much, and I would like to thank you publicly that you believe in wellness, and I think this is a lesson to all of us, that people from outside of our industry, from technology industry, because Eurotel Group is a technology based company that can combine wellness, understand what it is, and move forward. So David, just say hello from Australia, and then I go to Zangi and Andrew. Just say hello to everybody.
Hey. Well, thank you very much. I'd say good day, but it's actually good night. So, good night.
Good night.
Good night, David. Adieu.
Polly, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Zangi.
Thank you so very much, all of you. We usually, with the World Wellness Weekend, speak about the victory of the mind, the victory of the body. And when body and mind come together, you don't have two V's, you have a W, which is the W for World Wellness Weekend, the symbol of wellness. So thank you, sending you warm wellness wishes from Brussels to all of you. And thank you so very much, Eurotel, for organizing this series of talks, and especially you, my friend Stavros, for always being a force for good, a hero of inspiration, and the many years you've been in this industry, when you were one of the speakers at the World Spa and Wellness Conference many times, one of the juries now of the World Spa and Wellness Awards, and see, you're having your own series of talks now. Oprah Winfrey, beware, there's someone coming from Greece. Thank you so very much.
I would like to thank you. World Wellness Weekend.
Thank you so much.
Take care, and we will have minutes of this talk released through our press release and send it to you. Thank you very much. Take care, be safe, and be healthy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Stay healthy.